Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the arena with me. And so we've just recently hit Diamond, and as proof, it's not that hard. It just takes a lot of time and dedication. So there it is, Diamond Tier 4. We just hit Diamond yesterday with the Vampire decks. Now, it's come to my attention that the Vampire decks is actually one of the more powerful, if it's not the most powerful, it's the more powerful deck there is in the current meta in both best of 1 and best of 3. So, but why is that? For the longest time, it's been red decks, RDWs, red deck wins, which is a very specific deck archetype, not to be confused with the regular mono red decks. RDW decks are a very specific red deck type, and well, I'm not really here to explain that, but red deck RDWs are specifically designed to finish the game within a few rounds. But as I said, for the longest time, they have been the reigning champions of the ladder as of these past few blocks, these past few released sets. Alongside is Simic Nexus and Bant Ramp with the mass manipulation. But see, the problem with Simic Nexus is that you don't really see it in best of 1 matches because the card Nexus of Fate is banned in best of 1. And even then, when you see them in best of 3, they aren't exactly that powerful. And as you know, the meta is changing. Currently, there are a lot of counters to Simic Nexus. And so why the black-white Ors of Vampires? Why is this the strongest deck currently out there? And a lot of YouTubers will agree when I say that it is. A lot of even the pros will say that it is a very strong deck. Even an idiot can play it. I consider myself not very good at this game. I've only been playing this for the past 6 months, as compared to other players who've been playing MTG from Paper Magic since the very beginning, and their experience with the game, their knowledge and their skill with what to do, their understanding of the game and the cards, the mechanics and all that are probably a lot better than mine. But why is this deck better than RDWs? For one, from my journey into my current state of knowledge about the game and skill with the game is, well, RDWs make use of weak creatures, small creatures that don't really ramp up. There's no means for them to grow. And in Ors of Vampires, you have Sorin Imperious Bloodlord that will help you do that because of that +1 loyalty ability, wherein the vampires get to keep that +1/+1 counter on them, plus it has Death Touch and Lifelink. Very, very, in my opinion, overpowered but not unbalanced. Overpowered but not unbalanced card, especially when you use it properly, when you know how to use it. And the -3, the -3 loyalty that allows you to put down any vampire card in your hand onto the battlefield. So that would mean even if you don't have the land to, if you don't have the mana to put down, let's say, a Champion of Dusk or a Sanctum Seeker, at least you have Sorin if the opportunity presents itself to put down the Champion of Dusk or the Sanctum Seeker if needed. But that's just not the only thing that makes this deck better than RDW. RDW focuses on bursting down you, burning your health down to almost nothing, sometimes even forcing you to concede before your life is reduced because they get so ahead of the game, while the vampire decks and their variations allow you to sort of counter that with healing. For instance, none of these creature cards on their own have that healing ability, but because of this Sorin, it's just one card. Because of Sorin Imperious Blood, you're allowed to heal now. You have that ability to heal and regain health, despite the fact that none of your creatures have that heal. Alongside, if you put Adanto Vanguard and the Ebon Knight the Knight of the Ebon Legion to side by side, you create a really, really strong powerhouse. Why? Because, well, most people don't really understand or realize that the mechanic for the Ebon Legion, for the Knight of Ebon Legion, is that if a player, which means any player, loses 4 or more life this turn, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. So that means either you or your opponent. And normally what I like to do, and if you've been watching my videos or my streams as of late, you normally see that I actually I purposefully sacrifice health or pay for health when I have these 2 cards on the board, because I know that I can, once I put down Sorin, or if I have Sanctum Seeker on the board, I can always just recover my health back. And it's such a very powerful combo to have. And from the very beginning of this M20 set, I've actually been a fan of the vampires. A friend of mine actually called this to my attention, and it was simply because of Sorin Imperious Blood that I've become an instant fan. And I've from the very beginning I've been playing the vampire decks. It's just that I kind of curve off from the typical, whatever the usual things that happen in the meta. I kind of like to explore, and as you can see, I've been making I've been rooting a lot for the dragon decks, for the dragon cards in this meta. I've been trying to make it work. Not only that, I've been trying to make Kaikar work and Kalia with the angels work. But yeah, so along the way, from the very beginning, the vampire cards have changed over time very quickly, very minuscule changes, but very significant changes have happened over time. Before, we used to have the Icon of Ancestry in this deck to help us draw out cards and even boost the vampires. For a time, we even had the sort of flying combo with the Aerialist. Where is the Aerialist? The Bloodthirsty Aerialist, where you gain +1/+1 for every life you gain. And for a time, it's been a very powerful deck, a very strong archetype to be using. But then it wasn't really enough. So what we do, we take that out, we change it. We took out Icon of Ancestry, we put in Champion of Dusk to solve our problems with the draws and to combat because Bloodthirsty Aerialist is a 3 to cast it. Sometimes, you get mana screwed, especially when you're running a deck like this that has only 22 lands. Sometimes even when I sideboard, I take out 1 or 2 lands, knowing that I have Legion's Landing in there, because I can always cast it for 1, and the early game curve doesn't really ramp up that high because we only have 1 drops, and we have 1 to cast cards, 2 to cast cards, and our highest is probably the Champion of Dusk. And most of the time, we're not even casting Champion of Dusk for its mana value. In fact, most of the time I find myself casting Champion of Dusk, Sanctum Seeker using Sorin, because it's such a valuable card to have. He's not even that hard to defend, especially when you have cards like Oath of Kaya on the board, and you have removals in your sideboard to help you assist with the protection of your Sorin. Now, so best of 1, this main board is probably not the best one, but I've won a lot of games in best of 1 just using this main board without sideboarding and all that. But what you really want to do if you want to climb all the way up to Diamond is to use your sideboard, and the sideboards are pretty similar among it. The sideboards are there to help you counter whatever deck your opponent has, and I think it's very important that you play best of 3 instead of best of 1, especially since it's a lot easier to climb, because if you win a series of best of 1, a single series of best of 1, you get 2 pips, or you get 2 whatever levels, progress, or I just call them pips. You gain 2 pips every time you win a single series of best of 3, and it's a lot easier to win in best of 3, especially when you know what kind of decks your opponents is all about. And I really think it's worth your while. This is a lot coming from a player who's for the longest time has strayed away from the sideboard scenario, from the best of 3 scenario, because I was so intimidated by the fact that you have to play so many games just to progress in the ladder, and sideboarding, the whole psychology of it, trying to anticipate how your opponent will sideboard, but once you get used to it, it's not that hard. So there you have duress in your sideboard for if you're up against any spells or spell heavy. The moment you see that your opponent has a lot of like spells like Thought Erasure or Cast Down or Board Wipes, those are huge threats. Board Wipes like Settle the Wreckage, Kaya's Wrath, Flame Sweep, any of those board wipes, maybe even Ritual Suit. The moment you see that your opponent has those, you should include all 3 of your duress into you should sideboard 3 of your duresses into your main board immediately. You can take out a few lands, maybe 1 or 2. I'd recommend taking out only one land, and then maybe 1 Legion's Landing, because they are both mana equivalent cards. I think 21 to 22 lands for a vampire deck is pretty safe. So if you're feeling a little risky, you can go for 20 maybe, but I wouldn't advise that you remove any more. You keep the 4 Legion's Landing in there if you're going for 20 lands, because that's a little bit stretching it. I definitely wouldn't recommend going below that, like for 19 or 18. I know there are some decks out there, vampire decks, that do make use of that sort of thing, knowing that they can always sort of make up for it. But the real problem here is that you don't want to lag behind. You don't want to be behind with the mana against your opponent, because there are a lot of meta decks out there right now that have a lot of mana, and you don't want to be caught short-handed because you didn't have that enough land to make any moves. So Cast Down, Legion's End, and Noxious Scrap, they're all very good removals. Legion's End is more aimed against deck archetypes like RDWs, for instance. That's a very good instance. Or if there are still some Azorius Flyers out there, Azorius Flyers, where that they have a lot of same cards, same named cards on the board. Noxious Scraps is best if you're up against maybe the elementals, Timur elemental, or maybe even if it's just I don't know what else. Simic elementals, I think there's one, and Izzet elementals. For I think there's a few meta decks of Izzet elementals out there. Despark is usually paired when you're up against deck archetypes like Bant Manipulation or Bant Ramp. More like decks of Grixis, where they have huge planeswalker cards like Chandra and Nicol Bolas, but mostly or sometimes I even use this Despark against the elemental decks, just so that a lot of these elemental decks are starting to include Cavalier of Thorns, and one of the things that you don't want to do with Cavalier of Thorns is to destroy it or kill it. What you want is to exile it. So most of the time I save Despark for the Cavalier of Thorns, or for that Nissa who shakes the world, who will just destroy your board domination with land creatures. Gideon Blackblade is usually a sort of like a I don't know. I feel weird about Gideon being on the board, but normally you want Gideon if you're up against a mirror match. Like if you're up against a similar vampire deck, you want Gideon Blackblade on there just to sort of make it a little bit more difficult for your opponent to deal with you, because Gideon Blackblade brings so much value in such that he can make your creature indestructible. He can give it what's it called, lifelink or vigilance, and at the same time he has a -6 ability that can allow you to exile any non-land permanent. Take note, that is any non-land. That's not just creatures. Most of the time I see people use Gideon Blackblade use the -6 on creatures, but this is an exile target non-land permanent, so you can get rid of enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers. And normally you want to save that -6 for those moments, especially if you can sort of anticipate your opponent that having those cards in their deck. Ashiok is mainly a one-off, just for the what's it called, the field of the dead. You know, the Bant field of the dead, the Sultai field of the dead. But the only reason why Ashiok is only one, and you think that you want more so that you can sort of counter them immediately, is because the problem with Field of the Dead or those types of decks is that they're not very, or Scape Shift, if you want to call it that, they're not very consistent. If you can get them off, and it usually takes a while. They're kind of a mid-range-ish deck archetype, where sometimes you can Scape Shift immediately and just dominate the board with zombies on the early game, but the Scape Shift decks are a fad in my opinion. They aren't really that strong. They're not as strong as Simic Nexus is, and I think it's too slow. I've tried the Field of the Dead deck archetype, and I've never, as you've seen, I don't think any of you, if you've been on my channel for a while, I don't think any of you have seen me play Field of the Dead, because I don't really find it, award winning. It doesn't really feel like it's a deck worthy of playing, because sure, it's fun to have like a ton of zombies on the board, but it's not very consistent. Even if you do play it like high tier skill level and all that, versus a deck like this, the strongest deck in the current meta. Now, Vona, Butcher of Magan is an interesting card, because for a time I've been playing Vona into my main vampire deck, and the combo between Sorin and Vona is quite strong, because Vona is a 5 to cast card and she's quite expensive to put down. But having Sorin, for instance, if you get her early and you can sort of -3 with the Sorin and put her onto the board, she's pretty hard to deal with, because for one, you pay 7 life and she destroys any card on the board that isn't a land. And her value is pretty similar to Gideon's in that it's more instant. In fact, I think pay life and then you can destroy whatever you want on the board, and that is to say that you can do this every turn as long as you have health. So as long as you have Sorin on there, since most of the time you're going to want to have Sorin on the board before you put down Vona, so that you can sort of vampire her into the battlefield. You probably already have the advantage of it, but anyway, that's why you only start. That's why in this version of Vampires, we wanted to sideboard Vona this time instead, and maybe put in Ajani as a replacement, because Ajani, I don't really get to play him a lot in this deck, but when I do, his value is pretty much very flexible. For one, he is a planeswalker, so if you're up against maybe Simic Flash, you can use it as a sort of bait for a counter spell, and I don't really feel that bad if my Ajani gets counter spelled because he's not really he's just one of those cards where you want to put them out there, and you don't really care if he's out there or not because you know that your main win con revolves around Sorin, Adanto, the Knight of Ebon Legion, Champion of Dusk, and Sanctum Seeker, and then just playing around with the vampires all around there. But Ajani is sort of a wild card, as to say, wherein if if you're able to put him down, his value brings so much, because of his +1 loyalty ability, which allows you to put +1/+1 counters on up to 2 target creatures, and if you have to, then you can -2 and return a creature card from the graveyard that costs 2 or less. Well, what a surprise, most of our cards are 2 or less anyway, so you can bring back any card from the graveyard and straight onto the battlefield, which is a huge thing. And then if this is a huge if, you can get your Ajani to use his ultimate, which is you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, create 3 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. Then you basically jumpstart or propel yourself into the end game with that emblem, because every turn you're creating 3 threats on the board, and combine that with Legion's Landing, that allows you to create 1 more 4, a total of 4 plus whatever else creatures you have out there. And that's why Ajani is in this deck, so that you can sort of throw a curveball at your opponent, and it just catches them a little bit off guard, not knowing if they should allow it on the board, should they destroy it with their own Despark or Vraska's Contempt, should they counter it, and so as the saying goes in Magic, lack of knowledge does not excuse you from your own loss. It is your own fault if you don't know what a specific card does or how it combos into a certain deck. So with that all being said, I think we've covered all of these cards and how this deck really works, and why it really makes it one of the currently the best vampire decks out there, to take you all the way to Mythic even. So there we have a bit of gameplay after this very lengthy guide to Orzo Vampires. So I'll see you there into gameplay.
Alright. We can put down Sky Marcher Aspirant. On the first drop. I think he plays first. Looks like he's playing a blue, something with blue. Maybe it's Simic. Looks like a mono blue. Alright. Well, if it's mono blue, is he... maybe it's Simic Flash. Looks like he's thinking about scatter essencing it. Essence Capture. Put a 1/1 counter. Oh, that's interesting. So it's a counter spell that sort of buffs up the thing. Pretty interesting. Essence Capture. Pretty interesting. I guess he's fresh with he's probably fresh with counter spells. We'll sort of bait out a few. He's looking at it, he's thinking, nope. I gotta be careful with how I use these counter spells. That's an Adanto. I can deal with it. I've got Exile. Got Merfolk Trickster down on my turn. Just gonna tap it. And what's he gonna do? Deal 1 damage to it? Maybe? Curious Obsession. Who wants to go for the draw? Okay. He has 2 though, so maybe he'll draw into a counter spell. I definitely want a Duress in my sideboard now. Okay, so how do we go about this? I think we should Legion's Lieutenant and make him use his mana. No? Okay. He lets it through very casually. Alright, now we can... No. I think I want to use it on his turn. So that we can sort of bait out whatever it is that we can bait out. Ah! Another Merfolk Trickster. For the block? That's interesting. So Maidanto Vanguard's definitely going to die, but we're going to get rid of that ability to draw things. He's going to block it. His Merfolk is just going to die. That's okay. An even trade, I would say. Nah. Looks like somebody. Alright, so Ajani is a strong card. Except that it's our only one in there. And I want to draw out the negate. There, thank you very much. While at the same time we get to attack like so. Without any worry of him putting down like creatures on the board. Okay, maybe he can put down that spectral sailor. And he does get the Curious Obsession. You could say that he is a bit curiously obsessed. And there's another counter spell. Ooh, Opt. Does he have Spell Pierce? I guess not. But we're gonna use it to bring out a Champion Dust.
Welcome to the family.
We do need the draw. And we are a little bit out of... but this way we have two Sorens. It's not going to be a problem. He decides to draw and search for something. So we definitely want a bunch, a little bit of duress in there. If we can find a card that can destroy blues, I think it would be safe if we could go for those cards with blues that destroy the blues. I'm pretty sure he's gonna put in more counter spells. Right. We were kind of a little bit. So Legion's End, I think it'll come in handy. Search through the library? Not entirely sure I want that. You do want the duress. Greener right now, he's full of small cards. We have a Mortify and a Cast Down. We could get rid of one. Legion's Landing. Probably, maybe not the Ajani. That, I mean, the Ajani was pretty good, but Dusk Legion Zealot does have its merits. Adanto Sky Marcher Aspirant, probably not. Stop lagging, game, please. We don't need you to lag right now. Alright, I think this is okay. We do... The reason why we want duress is basically so that we can draw out them counter spells. That don't look good. Game is lagging like hell. Look at that! Look at that deck pile. It's just taking its time. Okay, so the game is not being kind. I guess we should probably take this hand. It is not being kind. Last time we were mana screwed, and there's a duress. Last time we were mana screwed. This time we're mana flooding. Oh, entrancing melody. Interesting. Okay. So, as suspected, he did fill his deck with a bunch of spells and counter spells. So we're gonna pass here. I guess we gotta play a little passively here. Which is kind of scary for an aggro deck. Because the more we play passively, the more... let's see, what does he have? Creature, spell, counter. Let's give it a test run. Let's see if he's got any counter spells in there as early as now. Okay. Alright. And we'll use it to bring out this Champion of Death and go for a draw. I think it's pretty worth doing that as early as you can, as possible. There's a Champion of Death. Merfolk Trickster for the tap. I assume he's going to destroy our Sorin. Right? I assume. And I assume right.
This wasn't my fight anyway.
I wonder if he has another Merfolk Trickster in there. So I do want to sort of draw out any other counter spells in there. Oh, okay. So I know that he has that dive down, and I do want him to use it. Alright, sure. So I do want him to use it now, early as now. Good. Okay. It's as I expected. I don't know if I should be defending here, but I can't, resist a good beat up. But we are able to put down the Oath of Kaya. And how about we further test out the little thing here. We further draw out the counter spells. I forget how many we put of these in here. His head is hesitating. Is that a good sign or is that a bad sign? Legion's End, we put a bunch. Oh, wow! Bingo! Right. Oh, wait, was that a bingo? Yeah, it was! Oh, wow! Nice. Nah, I don't want to... Sorry, he has the Spell Pierce. So putting down Sorin will not do us any good. We can put down the Sky Marcher Aspirant. Of course, he has the Essence Capture. He's probably thinking, should I use it now? I'm out of cards. No, okay. He thinks, maybe I'll use it later when we have a creature on the board. Okay. So we have Legion landing. I guess it would be sort of safe to say that we can put down Sorin Imperious Blood, seeing that he has a Spell Pierce. Yep, and we are going to pay for that. We want to pay for it. So that we go... Yep, there's another Spell Pierce. That's 2 for 2. I think that I think it's safe to say that is a win for us during that round, during that turn. There's a Terramander. Oh wow. With 4, I think that Terramander can, that's 7, yes, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I think that Terramander is going to convert itself pretty soon. As soon as I try to attack for it, that Terramander will convert itself into a 5. And, well, we are flying. And we don't have enough for a Champion of Dusk. I wonder what he's gonna do. So we attack. Will he block? I think he will. He will block and convert into a 5. We get 4 damage through. Looks like things are going his way now. In his favor. Another land. He still can't attack. I guess the duress is in order. Goodbye. We can say goodbye to that. And I guess we want to sit it back for a bit. So what does he have there? Could be something game breaking, could be something heartbreaking. Champion of Dusk. Hopefully he doesn't have another essence capture. Oh wow. Well played. So no attacks, but I do want to put this Legion landing down. Alright. So that we can sort of convert it. He is top decking. And he is gonna block. He's probably gonna block one of those. Well, we can still do 2 damage. And we heal for 2 as well. Ideally, by the end of the turn, we want to have... come on, we're so close. We're so close. Don't let us down now, we're so close to victory. Put you down and have this Sorin come out. And there's a counter spell. Okay. So how does he plan on protecting himself from this? Okay, 1 and 1, 2. That's a GG. With a 2-0. Alright. We're only a few wins away from reaching Diamond. But see, the thing is, I want to get into Diamond so that I can start, testing, because the player pool is a lot different in Diamond, right? So I want to start testing my deck there, my home brews and whatnot, in that tier. Come on, buddy. Okay, maybe he's he's thinking, or maybe he's lagging. Let's see, so vampires. Okay, so he sees that we are playing vampires. Ah, Simic. This is gonna be scary. We're up against either it's Simic or Bant Rampant, and I'm not too happy about that. Not happy at all. It's never Timur. All right. Well, we have 2 cast downs, and we do want to get through this Leafkin. Turn 4, we can put down Sanctum Seeker and pray to the lords. Alright, there's a Risen Reef. So I'm kind of on the fence here. Part of me wants to go Legion End, but part of me also wants to... Oh, okay, no, we can't Legion's End because it is a... I forget Risen Reef is actually a 3 to cast. It's such a small card. Okay. Probably doesn't need it. Okay. He maybe has another one. Nah. Wants to get rid of my lava coil. Wants to lava coil my little baby. So we have 5. We can put down the Champion of Dusk and draw into 2. Not bad. As we close in on... So I've only seen him play Lava Coil. Safe to say that he does have a few spells in there. But I think eventually he just wants to... He wants to go pure elementals. Go wide with all the... Yeah, so definitely I think he's going to take out that Lava Coil. replace it with a few more creatures, like maybe Cavalier of Thorns. So we're gonna need to have a bunch of removals in there. We're gonna have to put D-Spark, I'm thinking. Since most of his cards are going to be green, we want Noxious Grasp. The game, don't lag at me, not now, while I'm sideboarding. It didn't look like he was going to play into, but it did look like he, okay, it does look like we're going to need Cast Down. So we can take out a Johnny. Champion of Dusk is really proving itself, but we don't need all that, really. Legion's Landing, we can take out the Sky Marcher Aspirant. We don't want to remove the Knight of whatever, the Adanto. Dress, if we put in one, sure, it'll allow us to see what he's playing. It'll allow us to see into his hand. If we put in Legion's End, might help us a bit. I kind of like the idea of having Mortify in there, just another removal. I think this is good. We can play at 61. I guess you could say it's a typical anti-elemental sideboarding cards technique or whatever. So, because if he does get that ramp, he is going to have a lot of creatures. Oh man, this is ideally okay. Does our opponent play first? I don't know if I want to keep this. I think we should, but yeah, I think we should, as opposed to not being able to do anything on our first turn. Yeah, it's a good thing we drew into that Champion of Dusk. We have a D-Spark, so he plays first, I think. Yeah, so he's putting that down. There's the Llanowar Elf. Okay, we're drawing into our cast downs and these sparks. Kind of wish that we included a little bit more Legion's whatever it was. There's a Paradise Druid. Okay. There's nothing too important I'm seeing here, except when he. All right. So we kind of want him to put down creatures. Kind of. Not completely, but kind of. I'm pretty sure he has an Omnath in there. There's a Living Twister. Right? Not lit. There's another Leafkin. Alright, so I guess we can put this, we can use this cast down on that piece of Alienware. D-Spark, I guess Oath of Kaya would be good. I want to get rid of that Paradise Druid. That is going to help him sort of color mana correct. That's fine if he blocks. We at least get the one heal for 24. He does have 5. So if he decides to put down that Nisa, okay, another Leafkin Druid. Man, where's that Legion's End when you need it? And there's another Paradise Druid. He's really going for the ramp, while we are having trouble keeping up. So no, I guess we just want to play a little bit passive. This is bad though. As the game continues, as the game goes on, our chances of winning are slimming down. Because the more mana he gets, the more powerful he gets. There's a Hydroid Crassus. to refill his board. We have cast down. We can get rid of that Hydroid Crassus, but that won't be the last. That definitely won't be the last of his Hydroid Crassi. So we're just sort of surviving here. Very poorly. Alright, that's a second Sky Marcher. We're doing 3. Gain for 24. Come on. Come on, land. Don't screw me now. We kind of didn't need that Sky Marcher Aspirant. If that's a Nisa, nope, that's a Cavalier of Thorns. So we're gonna despark that immediately. So that he doesn't get the chance to bring back a Hydroid Crassus. Yeah, he's built himself of a few things. So he has 4. Actually, no, he has more than 4. He has 5. He has a lot. Way too much. Way too much mana that I would like him to have. Alright, well that's one thing I feel grateful for. Is the fact that he doesn't have any... counter spells. So that makes me feel a lot better. Superbly better. And the fact that we have another Sorin will help us. Oh, that's a little bit of a relief. Seeing him okay. Sorin, you're a lifesaver. Please don't have Nisa. Yes! And we hit diamond. Woo! Woo! Yes! We are diamond tier.